Now we review the 2024 film, The Deadly Swarm. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen the extremely low-budget 2024 film, The Deadly Swarm, which is right up my alley. It's a science fiction film. Oh yes. Before I go any further, injured my hand, doctor had to cut it open. Yes, it's a bit gory, but just try to ignore it. Anyway, so in the 2024 film, The Deadly Swarm, there is a doctor whose wife died, and he's experimenting in ways that would have saved her using what he calls vampire flies. I don't know if vampire flies are a thing, but they exist in this movie, and they're created by terrible CGI. So then, after a hook scene where there's some violence in the family, he gets a group of idiots to show up and be part of his experiments as he is slowly dying of something that makes him cough out green jello. This movie is very lackluster. Most of what's going on is between the characters, with the monster of the film, the Bugly, being sort of a background thing. And, it's this whole, people getting together being like, we should get out of here. No, we should stick around. No, we should get out of here. No, we should stick around. This is all crazy. And it's like, yeah, you should get out of there. This is weird. But they don't get out of there, which continues to beg the question, so why don't you just leave? Why don't you just get out of there? It would make a lot more sense if you just left and got out of there. But they don't. So there's a lot of that going on. And, one of the characters is clearly just gonzo, not including the doctor, and he's probably the best character. He's just very volatile, and his relationship with the other characters is very questionable, and he's probably the interesting part of this film, and then the low points are the points where the monster shows up, because it's done by extremely poor CGI, and it's a bunch of flies, which you would think would not be that hard to animate, but no, the animation here is really terrible. So look, this is a cheesy science fiction movie, and it belongs very low on the watch list. There's not a lot of redeeming qualities here. The acting is very much subpar. It was probably filmed in some rich guy's house, and it was probably a lot more fun to make than it was to watch. So yes, it belongs at the bottom of your watch list. It's not quite a fans of the genre only film, pretty much because it's just not as interesting. It's not as batshit crazy as it could be, which would, the fans of the genre only is technically my lowest rating, but it's also, it's ratings for films that are very much unique and crazy, and films that you should probably watch because they're great examples of what they are. This film is very boring. There's just not a lot about it to make it interesting or compelling to watch. It is very much low-budget cinema. And, the characters, they're fine. I don't know what I would really have done to have tried to make this film better, because the premise is it kind of starts off, it's like a Frankenstein's monster kind of a thing, but it's a cliche premise, only this time it's a fly. And the flies aren't what's you should have chosen a monster that you could have done better. So yeah, a proper budget probably wouldn't have improved this film much. It never was going to be scary. Maybe it was meant to be funny. I didn't laugh once. I didn't think it was all that funny, but then I don't laugh at anything. So to me, this is very much low on the watch list. It's not a film you should seek out. It's not a film you should watch unless you have nothing better to do. And it's just The Deadly Swarm. I got through it. So I can't say it's completely bad, but if you're not into cheesy horror movies, this film is just not going to tickle you. And I mean, it's not cheesy enough to be interesting in and of its own right, and it's not well done enough to be, worth watching. So it's not a very competently made film, is what I'm saying. It's one of those, like, it looks like these are very young filmmakers who don't have a lot of experience, and they got together at some guy's house and they made a movie. And bravo, you probably did better than I could do, because I don't have the budget and the crew. But, it's just, this was a group of bad choices, and they could have done better with what they had if they had made some kind of a monster that was, like, if maybe, for example, the son character had been the monster, and what's happened to him is that he's now some kind of a vampire, that he has to drink the blood of the people there, and like the dad character, who's the mad scientist, is luring people there to be eaten by his son. That might have been a little more cliche, but it would have probably been an easier to do monster and better within this budget. So it's like, yeah, like this film, it's cliche, it's cheesy, but it's not fun cheesy. It's just cheesy. So yeah, I can't recommend it. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. I'm Richard.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fred the Facehugger, and I'd like to point out that this world isn't a nice place. But you know who's trying to make it a nice place? The owner of this channel, yes. The owner of this channel does things like pay for ocean cleanup, and have trees planted, and even feed orphans in an orphanage in Mexico. Yes, it's a real thing, I'm not kidding. I may be a face-hugging alien from a horror movie, but I'm not a liar. Anyway, when you comment, like, and subscribe, you're supporting that better world, and whereas it may not make a big difference, it may be the difference between one more tree planted, one more pound of trash out of the ocean, or one child not going hungry tonight. So, think about it. Shouldn't you comment? Shouldn't you like? Shouldn't you subscribe? I certainly would if I were you. I'm Fred.